The taste of salt mingled with the bitter remnant of expensive lipstick as tears streamed down my face, ruining the makeup that had taken 3 hours to apply. The church's stone steps felt cold beneath me, the delicate lace of my wedding dress soaking up moisture from the evening rain that had fallen earlier. I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. Miss? The church is closing soon. The elderly caretaker's voice barely penetrated the fog of my humiliation. I nodded mechanically, not moving. Where would I even go? My apartment, our apartment, was filled with Jake's things, with the life we'd planned together. The life he'd shattered when he'd failed to appear at the altar, leaving only a hastily written note with his best man. I can't do this. I'm sorry. 3 simple sentences to destroy everything I'd believed in. 3 years together, wiped away. The few remaining guests had left hours ago, their pitying glances worse than any cruel words. My parents had tried to convince me to come home with them, but the thought of facing their knowing looks, they'd never fully approved of Jake, was unbearable. My maid of honor had offered her couch, but I'd sent her away too. I needed to be alone with my shame, my naivety. Just a few more minutes, I whispered, my voice hoarse from crying. The caretaker sighed but retreated inside. The September air grew colder as darkness fell completely, the streetlights casting long shadows across the church steps. My phone had died hours ago, its battery drained by unanswered calls to Jake's number. I shivered, pulling the delicate fabric of my dress closer around my shoulders. $5,000 of hand-beaded silk and lace, now damp and ruined, like my plans, like my heart. A sleek black Bentley pulled up to the curb, its engine purring almost silently. I paid it little attention. This was an upscale neighborhood. Expensive cars were common. The rear door opened, and I glimpsed polished leather shoes before raising my eyes to the tall figure that emerged. Even through my tears, he commanded attention. Broad shoulders encased in what was clearly a bespoke suit, dark hair swept back from a face that seemed carved from marble, all sharp angles and intensity. His eyes, dark as midnight, fixed on me with an unsettling focus, as if I were a puzzle to be solved. A second man exited the driver's side, taller, bulkier, with the watchful stance of a guard dog. He scanned the area with practiced efficiency before nodding almost imperceptibly to his employer. I should have been afraid. Instead, I felt nothing but hollow emptiness as the suited man approached, stopping at the bottom of the steps. Up close, I caught the scent of expensive cologne, something woodsy with notes of amber. It reminded me of how out of place I was, a crumpled, crying mess on church steps in a neighborhood where men like him belonged. The church is closed, I said flatly, not bothering to wipe my tears. His expression didn't change. I'm aware. His voice was deep, accented. Italian, perhaps. Yet, here you are. I looked away. I'm leaving soon. Where? The directness of his question struck me. Who was this stranger to ask me anything? Yet something in his tone demanded an answer. I don't know, I admitted, hating the tremor in my voice. He studied me for a long moment, his gaze moving deliberately from my tear-stained face to the ruined wedding dress. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something harder to define, a flash of anger, though not directed at me. What's your name? He asked. I hesitated. My mother's warnings about strangers echoed in my head, but what did it matter now? Sophia Chen. Something flickered in his expression. Chen, he repeated, as if testing the name. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the evening air. There was recognition there, though I was certain we'd never met before. And yours? I asked, surprising myself with the boldness. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Luca Ricci. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he watched for my reaction suggested it should. When I showed no recognition, he seemed almost relieved. It's not safe for you to be alone here, Sophia, he said, my name sounding different in his accent. Not dressed like that. Not in this state. I laughed bitterly. I don't have many options right now. You do, he countered, reaching into his jacket. For one wild moment, I thought he might pull out a weapon, but instead, he produced a pristine white handkerchief, offering it to me. You can come with me. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? Come with me, he repeated. Not a question, a statement. Now. I don't know you, I said, finally wiping my face with the back of my hand, ignoring his handkerchief. He didn't withdraw it. You know my name. I know yours. That's more than many beginnings have. Beginnings? I echoed. I was supposed to be married today, yet you're not, he observed, his bluntness cutting through my fog of self-pity. The man who left you here, he gestured to my disheveled state with a slight movement of his hand. He doesn't deserve your tears, Sophia. My name in his mouth felt almost like a caress. I should have been offended by his presumption, but there was something in his certainty that reached past my defenses. Why would you help me? I asked, taking the handkerchief at last. It was real silk, monogrammed with elegant initials. LR. His eyes never left mine. Let's just say I owe your family. My heart stuttered. My family? You know my parents? Not exactly, he said, extending his hand. But I knew your father, Chen Wei, before he changed his name. I froze. My father had indeed changed our family name decades ago, long before I was born. He rarely spoke of his life before coming to America. How could this stranger know something so personal? Before I could question him further, the church doors opened, and the caretaker reappeared, this time more insistent. Miss, I really must close up now. Luca turned to him, his posture shifting subtly. He didn't speak, but something in his stance made the older man step back. Take your time, the caretaker muttered, retreating inside once more. I stood up shakily, the heavy fabric of my dress weighing me down. Whatever you think you know about my father is not a discussion for church steps, Luca interrupted smoothly. Come with me, Sophia. A warm meal, a place to collect yourself. No obligations beyond that. I should have said no. Every instinct for self-preservation screamed against following a stranger, especially one who knew things about my family that even I didn't. Yet, where else could I go? Back to the apartment I'd shared with Jake? To my parents' home to face their pity and unspoken, I told you so's? As if sensing my internal debate, Luca added softly, sometimes fate makes choices for us. Tonight, it chose to bring me here when you needed someone most. Fate, I repeated dubiously. Or were you following me? For the first time, a genuine smile crossed his face, transforming his severe features into something almost breathtaking. If I were following you, Sophia Chen, you wouldn't have spent hours crying alone on these steps. I didn't correct his slight mispronunciation of my name. Somehow, it sounded right in his accent, more like who I might become than who I'd been. The driver opened the rear door of the Bentley, his expression impassive. Luca remained where he was, hand still extended, waiting. Not pushing, but not retreating either. I took one last look at the church behind me, at the flower petals still scattered on the ground, remnants of the ceremony that should have been. Then I placed my hand in Luca's. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, and I felt something shift, as if I'd made a choice far more significant than simply accepting a ride. Good girl, he murmured, leading me down the steps. The words should have felt condescending, but instead they washed over me like a balm, soothing the ragged edges of my wounded pride. The interior of the car smelled of leather, and the same cologne that clung to Luca. As I sank into the plush seat, exhaustion hit me like a physical force. Luca slid in beside me, leaving careful distance between us. Where are we going? I asked as the car pulled away from the curb. Somewhere safe, he answered. His eyes met mine in the dim light of the car's interior. You can rest now, Sophia. Perhaps it was the gentle command in his voice, or simply the culmination of the most devastating day of my life, but I found my eyes growing heavy. The last thing I remembered before drifting into uneasy sleep was the weight of Luca's jacket being placed carefully around my shoulders, and his voice, low and determined, speaking Italian into a phone. I didn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable, a promise, or perhaps a threat, being made. When I woke, the world had changed, and so had I. I awoke to the sensation of silk against my skin, so different from the scratchy lace of my wedding dress that for a moment, I thought I'd dreamed the entire catastrophe. Perhaps Jake and I were already married, honeymooning in some luxury hotel. Then reality crashed back, the abandoned ceremony, the church steps, the stranger with knowing eyes, Luca Ricci. My eyes flew open. I was lying in an enormous four-poster bed, drowning in cream-colored sheets with a thread count higher than my monthly rent. Sunlight filtered through heavy curtains, illuminating an expansive bedroom decorated in muted golds and deep blues. My wedding dress was gone, replaced by a silk nightgown I'd never seen before. Panic surged through me as I bolted upright. Who had changed my clothes? Where was I? I scanned the room for my belongings, but found no trace of them. Good morning. The voice came from a corner armchair I hadn't noticed, partially hidden in shadow. Luca sat there, as impeccably dressed as the night before, though in different clothes. Charcoal trousers and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to expose strong forearms. He held a steaming cup of what smelled like espresso, watching me with those intense eyes. I clutched the sheets to my chest. Where am I? Where are my clothes? You're in my home, he answered calmly. Your dress is being cleaned and restored, though I doubt you'll want to wear it again. Who undressed me? I demanded, heat rushing to my face. My housekeeper, Mrs. Vitale. She's been with my family for 30 years. He set down his cup and stood, staying a respectful distance from the bed. She also provided the nightgown. I hope it fits well enough. I relaxed slightly, though my heart still raced. Why did you bring me here? Luca crossed to a large window and drew back the curtains, revealing a breathtaking view of the city skyline. We were clearly in a penthouse, dozens of floors above the streets. I told you last night, I owed your father. There it was again, that claim of connection to my family. I studied him in the morning light. He was younger than I'd first thought, perhaps in his mid-30s, with the confidence of someone accustomed to power, the kind of man who would never be left standing alone at an altar. My father was an accountant, I said. He died 3 years ago from heart failure. Something like respect flickered in Luca's expression. Is that what he told you? The question sent ice through my veins. What are you implying? Instead of answering, he walked to a closet and opened it, revealing women's clothing with tags still attached. Mrs. Vitale estimated your size. You'll find everything you need. When you're ready, join me for breakfast on the terrace. He gestured toward a door. The bathroom is through there. Before I could protest, he was gone, closing the bedroom door behind him. I sat frozen for several minutes, mind racing. The events of yesterday, my failed wedding, Jake's abandonment, seemed almost trivial compared to the mystery unfolding around my father. What secrets had he kept? What connection could he possibly have had to a man like Luca Ricci? Finally, practicality won out over confusion. I needed clothes, food, and information, in that order. The bathroom was a marble palace with a shower large enough for 6 people. I stood under the hot water until my skin turned pink, washing away dried tears and the lingering scent of wedding perfume. Wrapped in a plush towel, I examined the closet contents. Everything was my size exactly: jeans, blouses, dresses, even lingerie with French labels. The casual precision of it all was unsettling. I selected simple jeans and a cream sweater, surprised at how perfectly they fit. As I dressed, I noticed my engagement ring still on my finger, a 2-carat diamond that had seemed impressive until I'd seen it on the hand of Jake's previous girlfriend in an old social media photo. I twisted it off and placed it on the nightstand. Whatever happened next, that chapter was closed. The penthouse was even more impressive beyond the bedroom. Open concept with floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furnishings that screamed money, rather than shouting it. I followed the sound of voices to a sprawling terrace garden where Luca sat at a glass table laden with breakfast foods. He wasn't alone. The driver from last night stood near the terrace edge, speaking quietly into a phone. Another man, older, with silver at his temples, sat across from Luca, studying what looked like financial documents. Both men fell silent when I appeared. Luca stood immediately. Sophia, you look rested. It wasn't true. I felt hollow and brittle, but I appreciated the courtesy. The older man also rose, curiosity evident in his shrewd gaze. Antonio, Marco, give us privacy, Luca commanded softly. Both men departed without question, though the older one, Antonio, gave me a considering look before leaving. Please, sit. Luca gestured to the chair beside him. You must be hungry. I was, desperately so. I'd been too nervous to eat before the ceremony, and then too devastated afterward. I sat cautiously, eyeing the spread of pastries, fruit, and eggs. You said you knew my father, I said, ignoring the food. I want to know what you meant. Luca poured coffee into a delicate cup and placed it before me. Eat first, then we'll talk. His tone left no room for argument. I took a sip of the coffee, rich and perfectly prepared, then helped myself to a croissant and some berries. Luca watched with apparent satisfaction as I ate, though he himself took only coffee. Your father wasn't always Chen Wei, he said, after I'd eaten half the croissant. When he first came to this country, he was Zhao Wei, right-hand man to one of Shanghai's most influential businessmen. I nearly choked on my coffee. That's ridiculous. My father came here as a graduate student. He met my mother in college. After he changed his identity, yes, Luca agreed. But before that, he worked for a man named Zhao Liang, no relation, despite the shared name. Your father was his most trusted advisor for almost a decade. My grandfather was a farmer, I protested. My family has never been involved with whatever you're implying. Luca's expression softened slightly. Your father reinvented himself to protect you and your mother. He wanted a different life for his family. And how exactly do you fit into this fantasy story? I challenged. Zhao Liang was my father's biggest rival and occasional ally, he said simply. Your father once intervened to prevent a conflict that would have ended badly for both families. I was a child then, but I never forgot the debt we owed him. The world tilted beneath me. It couldn't be true. My gentle, mathematics-loving father involved with people who spoke of conflicts and debts in such ominous tones. Yet something deep inside whispered that it explained so much. His insistence on using our Americanized names, his reluctance to speak of China, the mysterious deposits that had funded my education. You're saying my father worked for the Chinese Mafia? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Luca's smile was grim. We don't use that term, but yes, your father was part of an organization similar to mine. The implication hung in the air between us. I set down my coffee cup with trembling hands. I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm a businessman with diverse interests, he replied carefully. Some of those interests require special security considerations. As if on cue, the door to the terrace opened, and Marco, the driver, reappeared. Scusi, boss. That situation needs your attention. Luca nodded once, then turned back to me. I need to take care of something. Feel free to explore the apartment. Marco will remain if you need anything. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. And Sophia, don't try to leave. The elevator requires a key, and we're 35 floors up. It's for your protection. You're keeping me prisoner? I asked, incredulous. I'm keeping you safe, he corrected. The man who was to marry you, there's more to his disappearance than cold feet. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? What about Jake? Luca's expression hardened. We'll discuss it when I return. Rest, eat, gather your strength. You'll need it. With that cryptic warning, he left, Marco falling into step behind him like a shadow. I sat alone on the terrace, the magnificent view now seeming like a beautiful cage. My life had been upended twice in 24 hours. First by Jake's abandonment, now by revelations that threatened to rewrite my entire family history. After finishing my coffee, I did explore the apartment, which occupied the entire top floor of the building. The decor was masculine but tasteful, with artwork I suspected was original and valuable. One room was clearly an office, its door conspicuously locked. Another appeared to be a small gym with equipment I didn't recognize. Throughout the space, subtle security was evident. Cameras in the corners, reinforced doors. In the living room, I found a wall of photographs. Most were formal, Luca with various important-looking men, shaking hands or raising glasses at events. But one caught my eye, an older photo, slightly faded, showing two young men standing beside a classic car. One was clearly a younger version of my father. The other man resembled Luca, same commanding presence, same intensity, but older. His father, perhaps? They were smiling, arms around each other's shoulders like old friends. My knees weakened. It was true then. My father had led a double life before becoming the man I knew. The revelation left me reeling. What else had he hidden? What other secrets had died with him? I was still staring at the photo when I heard the elevator doors open. Voices drifted down the hallway. Luca's? And another I didn't recognize. Took the money and ran, the stranger was saying. Left the girl and disappeared with everything. And the package? Luca asked. Never delivered. He played us all. Find him. Luca's voice turned icy. I want him alive. And the girl? She stays here, protected. Boss, if her father was really... I know exactly who her father was. Luca cut him off. Which is why she remains under my protection. Is that understood? Yes, boss. Their footsteps approached, and I quickly moved away from the photo wall, pretending to examine a large abstract painting instead. Luca entered, followed by a lean man with a jagged scar along his jaw. Both stopped short when they saw me. Sophia, Luca acknowledged, his tone revealing nothing of the conversation I'd overheard. This is Dominic, my security chief. The scarred man nodded, but didn't offer to shake hands. His eyes assessed me with professional detachment. What did you mean about Jake? I asked, skipping pleasantries. You said his disappearance wasn't just cold feet. Luca exchanged a look with Dominic, who withdrew silently to another room. Your fiancé was using you, Luca said bluntly, approaching until he stood directly before me. He was never going to go through with the wedding. Pain lanced through me, but it was duller now, overshadowed by confusion and fear. How could you possibly know that? Because he made a deal with people who don't honor their agreements. Luca's eyes darkened. He took their money, promised delivery, and vanished. They believe you might know where he is. Delivery of what? I asked, increasingly bewildered. Luca studied me carefully. Information. Data. Your fiancé claimed to have access to certain financial records through your father's old accounts. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. Jake never even met my father. We only started dating after Dad died. Exactly, Luca said quietly. Which makes his claim suspicious, doesn't it? A horrible thought struck me. He dated me because of my father? Because he thought I had access to something? Luca's silence was answer enough. 3 years of my life, a relationship I'd believed in enough to accept a proposal, had been built on lies. Who are these people Jake dealt with? I whispered. Former associates of your father who believe he hid something valuable before his death, Luca replied. They're not as patient as I am. If they find you, they'll extract whatever information they can, whether you have it or not. I sank onto a nearby sofa, legs no longer able to support me. This is insane. I'm an art teacher. My father was an accountant. We're normal people. Luca sat beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. That same woodsy scent that had first registered in my devastation on the church steps. Your father was extraordinary, he said softly. And I suspect you are too, even if you don't know it yet. Our eyes met, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed something beyond the controlled businessman. A flicker of genuine concern, perhaps even admiration. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the connection. He checked the message, his expression hardening. They found Jake's apartment, ransacked. He's in the wind, but they're looking for you now, too. So I really am a prisoner, I said numbly. Luca's hand covered mine, warm and steady. You're under my protection, Sophia. There's a difference. But as his security team filtered into the apartment, taking up positions with the practiced efficiency of soldiers preparing for siege, the distinction felt academic at best. I was caught in a web I hadn't known existed, connected to a man whose power was as evident as it was frightening, and somewhere out there, the man I'd almost married was running for his life, having dragged me into a danger I still didn't fully understand. 3 days passed in Luca's penthouse, each one a strange blend of luxury and confinement. I was given everything I could need, clothes, books, even art supplies when I mentioned my teaching. But freedom remained elusive. Luca came and went, always polite, occasionally joining me for meals where our conversations danced around the dangerous truths hanging between us. I learned little more about Jake or the mysterious information he'd supposedly stolen. Whenever I pressed, Luca would redirect the conversation with practiced ease. All in good time, he'd say, dark eyes studying me as if searching for something hidden within me. On the 4th morning, I awoke to find a small box beside my bed, wrapped in cream-colored paper with a simple gold ribbon. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, elegant but not ostentatious, with a small charm shaped like a protective eye. For safety, Luca explained when I emerged wearing it, his approval evident in his gaze. And to track you should the need arise. You're monitoring me now? I asked, torn between outrage and a strange, unwelcome flutter at his attention. His smile was unapologetic. I'm protecting what's mine. The possessive statement should have angered me. Yet I found myself speechless, caught in his unwavering stare until his phone rang, breaking the moment. "We've found him," he said after a brief conversation in rapid Italian. "Get the car ready." He turned to me. "I need to go out. Marco will remain with you." "I want to come," I said impulsively. Luca paused, evaluating me. "You want to face the man who betrayed you?" "I need answers," I insisted. "About Jake, about my father, all of it." After a long moment, he nodded. "Wear something practical, and stay close to me at all times." 30 minutes later, I sat beside Luca in the Bentley, dressed in the most understated clothes I'd found in the closet: dark jeans, a black sweater, and leather ankle boots. Dominic drove, with another security man I hadn't met before riding in the passenger seat. The atmosphere in the car was tense, expectant. "Where are we going?" I asked as we left the gleaming skyscrapers of downtown behind, heading toward more industrial areas. "One of my properties," Luca answered vaguely. His hand rested on the seat between us, close enough that I could feel its warmth. "Sophia, when we arrive, you'll stay behind me. If I tell you to leave, you go immediately with Marco. No questions." The commanding tone left no room for argument. "I understand." We pulled up to what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse. 2 black SUVs were already parked outside, men in dark suits standing guard. They nodded respectfully as Luca emerged from the car, their eyes widening slightly when they saw me. "Boss?" one began, clearly concerned about my presence. Luca silenced him with a look. "She stays with me." Inside, the warehouse was largely empty, except for a central area where stark overhead lights illuminated a scene that made my blood run cold. Jake knelt on the concrete floor, hands bound behind his back, a bruise blooming across his left cheek. 2 men stood guard over him. He looked up as we entered, his eyes widening in shock when he saw me. "Sophia? What are you doing with him?" His voice cracked with fear and confusion. I couldn't speak. The man I'd almost married now seemed like a stranger, his familiar features twisted with desperation. "Mr. Foster?" Luca's voice was deceptively calm as he approached, keeping me slightly behind him. "You've caused quite a lot of trouble." Jake's eyes darted between us. "Sophia, you need to get away from him. You don't know who he is. Rich. Coming from you?" I finally found my voice, anger surging through me. "Were you ever going to go through with the wedding? Or was that just part of your plan too?" Confusion flashed across Jake's face. "What? Of course Enough!" Luca cut him off. "Where's the data you stole?" Jake's expression shifted to calculation. "I don't know what you're talking about," Luca sighed, almost disappointed. "Marco." The security man stepped forward, removing something from his pocket. I tensed, expecting a weapon, but it was a phone. He showed the screen to Jake, whose face drained of color. "Your parents," Luca explained to me quietly. "We have men outside their home in Florida." Horror washed through me. "Luca, no." He touched my arm gently. "A negotiation tactic only, Sophia. No harm will come to them if Mr. Foster cooperates." Jake's shoulders slumped. "It's in a safety deposit box." "Keys in my apartment, hidden in the bathroom vent." "The apartment that was ransacked?" Luca asked. A flicker of surprise crossed Jake's face. "They got there already? Shit." "Who, Jake?" I demanded. "Who are you working with?" He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to be involved, but your father, he took something that didn't belong to him. Something valuable." "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer, despite Luca's restraining hand. "Account numbers. Access codes. Your father moved millions before he disappeared from their organization. They've been looking for it ever since." "My father was an accountant," I insisted automatically, but the words rang hollow now. Jake gave a bitter laugh. "Your father was Zhao Wei, right hand to one of the biggest crime bosses in Shanghai. He stole from them and ran. They've been looking for that money for 20 years. I felt Luca stiffen beside me. "And how did you come to possess this information, Mr. Foster?" Jake's eyes narrowed. "My father worked for the organization too. Lower level. He recognized Chen Wei from old photographs years ago, but by then your father was established. respectable. His gaze returned to me. When he died, I was sent to get close to you, to find out if you had access to his accounts. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined possible. 3 years, Jake. We were together for 3 years. Something like genuine regret crossed his face. It wasn't all lies, Soph. I did care for you. Enough to abandon her at the altar. Luca's voice was deadly quiet. I got cold feet, Jake admitted. Not about the mission, about involving her further. They were getting impatient, demanding results. The wedding was their idea. Once we were married, they'd have legal access to everything. Who is they? Luca demanded. The Zhao family. The son runs things now. Zhao Min. Luca cursed softly in Italian. And the key? If your apartment was compromised? Jake hesitated, then looked directly at me. Sophia has it. Has had it for over a year. What? I stepped back, bewildered. I don't have any key. A sad smile crossed Jake's face. The jade pendant. The one I gave you for our anniversary. It's hollow. My hand flew to my throat, where the pendant had hung until my wedding day. I'd left it at our apartment, considering it bad luck to wear another man's gift at my wedding. It's gone, I whispered. Whoever ransacked your apartment probably took it. Fear flashed across Jake's face. Then we're all dead. Luca's phone rang. He answered, listening intently, his expression growing darker. Take her to the car, he ordered Marco suddenly. Now. What's happening? I resisted as Marco took my arm. They found us, Luca said grimly. Zhao's men. They must have followed Foster. Gunfire erupted outside. Marco dragged me toward a back exit while Luca barked orders in Italian. The last thing I saw before being pulled through the door was Luca drawing a gun from inside his jacket, his other hand yanking Jake to his feet. Marco rushed me to another vehicle. Not the Bentley, but a nondescript sedan parked behind the warehouse. Get in, he ordered, pushing me into the back seat before sliding behind the wheel. Wait, what about Luca? I twisted to look back as the sound of gunfire intensified. Boss can handle himself, Marco assured me, starting the engine. My job is to get you to safety. We peeled away just as several dark SUVs pulled up to the warehouse. Men with weapons poured out, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Luca was still in there, possibly fighting for his life because of me, because of secrets my father had kept. Marco drove with practiced precision, taking sharp turns and back alleys until I was completely disoriented. Where are we going? Safe house, he replied tersely. Boss has contingencies for everything. 20 minutes later, we pulled into an underground garage beneath an unassuming apartment building. Marco escorted me to a service elevator, then through a maze of hallways to a door that looked like all the others. Inside was a simple but comfortable apartment, with the same subtle security features I'd noticed at Luca's penthouse. Wait here, Marco instructed. I'll check in when I can. You're leaving? Panic edged into my voice, his expression softened slightly. Boss needs backup. Don't worry, this place is secure. No one knows about it except the inner circle. After he left, I paced the apartment, checking windows, reinforced glass too high to escape, doors, multiple locks, and trying not to imagine what might be happening at the warehouse. The pendant Jake had given me, a simple jade oval on a gold chain, had been nothing but a key all along. Another lie in a relationship built on deception. Hours passed. Night fell. I found food in the kitchen but couldn't eat. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. Finally, near midnight, I heard keys in the door. I grabbed a kitchen knife, heart pounding as the door swung open. Luca stood there, suit jacket missing, white shirt spattered with blood. A cut above his eye had been hastily bandaged, and he held his left arm stiffly, as if injured. You're hurt, I whispered, dropping the knife. He stepped inside, locking the door behind him. Not all of this is mine. The implication hung in the air. Jake? Alive, Luca said curtly. For now. His usefulness depends on whether we can recover that key before Zhao's men. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by guilt for feeling relieved about the safety of a man who'd spent years deceiving me. Luca crossed to a cabinet, withdrawing a bottle of whiskey and a glass. He poured 2 fingers, drank it straight, then finally looked at me properly. Are you all right? He asked, his voice gentler. I nodded automatically, then shook my head. I don't know what I am anymore. Everything I thought I knew. He set down the glass and moved toward me, stopping when only inches separated us. You're Sophia Chen, daughter of Zhao Wei, under my protection. His hand lifted to touch my face, fingers tracing my cheek with unexpected tenderness. And far stronger than you know. The intensity in his dark eyes made breathing difficult. I should have stepped away, should have maintained distance from this dangerous man whose world had collided so violently with mine. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, seeking anchor in the storm my life had become. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar blinds as I woke on the safe house couch. I'd insisted Luca take the bedroom with his injuries, despite his protests. Sometime during the night, someone had draped a blanket over me. Luca, I presumed, though the thought of him watching me sleep sent an unexpected shiver through me. The apartment was quiet. I padded to the kitchen, finding coffee already brewed and a note in elegant handwriting. Stay inside. Back soon, L. I poured myself a cup, mind racing through yesterday's revelations. My father, a criminal who'd stolen millions. Jake, sent to find hidden accounts. Luca, part of the same shadowy world, now my self-appointed protector, and somewhere out there, Zhao's men hunting for a key I'd unwittingly carried for over a year. The jade pendant. I closed my eyes, remembering the day Jake had given it to me. It reminded me of your heritage, he'd said, with that boyish smile I'd found so charming. Something to keep your father's memory close. The calculated cruelty of the gesture made my stomach turn. The apartment door opened, and I tensed until Luca appeared, carrying bags of groceries. He moved with barely concealed discomfort, his injured arm still held stiffly. You should be resting, I said, taking the bags from him. He arched an eyebrow. I've had worse. As I unpacked the groceries, fresh bread, fruit, eggs, I studied him covertly. In daylight, without his usual impeccable suit, he looked different. More approachable in dark jeans and a simple gray Henley, but no less dangerous. The bandage above his eye had been changed, and I noticed bruising along his knuckles. What happened after I left? I asked, setting a carton of eggs in the refrigerator. Luca leaned against the counter, accepting the coffee I offered. Zhao's men were expecting us. Someone tipped them off. Jake? Possibly. His jaw tightened. Or someone in my organization. The thought of betrayal within his ranks clearly bothered him more than his physical injuries. Where is Jake now? Secure, he answered vaguely. We've moved him somewhere Zhao won't find him. I hesitated before asking the question that had haunted me all night. Did you hurt him? Luca's dark eyes met mine. Would it matter to you if I had? I don't know, I admitted. He deceived me for years, used me to get to my father's secrets. I should hate him, but I can't just turn off feelings like a switch. I set down my coffee cup, suddenly restless. 3 years, Luca. I believed we were building a life together. Luca's expression hardened. He never deserved you. There was something possessive in his tone that should have alarmed me, but instead sent warmth spreading through my chest. I turned away, confused by my reaction. What happens now? I asked, changing the subject. We find the pendant before Zhao's men do? We've already found it, Luca said quietly. I spun to face him. What? Where? One of Zhao's men had it when we interrogated him last night. They recovered it from your apartment the day after your wedding. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by apprehension. So you have the access codes now? The money my father stole? Luca set down his cup and approached me slowly, like one might approach a frightened animal. Not yet. The pendant is only half the key. What's the other half? I asked, already suspecting the answer. His hand rose to my face, fingers gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. You, Sophia. Your father would never leave his legacy in the hands of strangers. The combination to open the pendant. It would be something only you would know. I stared at him. But I don't know anything about secret accounts or stolen millions. Not consciously, perhaps. His hand dropped to my shoulder, warm through the thin fabric of my borrowed t-shirt. But your father would have embedded it somehow. A birthday, an anniversary, a special place, something meaningful to both of you. My mind raced through possibilities. My birthday, my mother's birthday, their anniversary. All obvious choices that professional criminals would have tried already. I need to see the pendant, I said suddenly. Luca nodded, withdrawing a small velvet pouch from his pocket. The jade oval looked exactly as I remembered it. Smooth green stone on a delicate gold chain. But when Luca pressed the sides in a specific pattern, the oval split to reveal a hollow interior lined with microchip. We need a 6-digit code, he explained. Enter it incorrectly 3 times, and the chip self-destructs. I took the pendant with trembling hands, turning it over. On the back, nearly invisible unless you knew to look, was a tiny engraving, a Chinese character I recognized from a calligraphy set my father had given me on my 16th birthday. Yongheng, I whispered. Eternity. Luca watched me intently. Does that mean something to you? Tears pricked my eyes as memory surfaced. When I was 12, I asked my father why he changed our name when he came to America. He said some things change, but others are eternal, like his love for me and my mother. Luca's expression softened. A date, perhaps? When he changed his name? I shook my head. I don't know exactly when, then it hit me. Wait. The settlement date on my parents' house. Dad always said it was the day his American life truly began. The date was burned in my memory because we'd celebrated its anniversary every year. March 8th, 1994. 030894. My hands shook as I carefully entered the numbers into the tiny keypad inside the pendant. The last digit confirmed with a soft click, and the microchip glowed blue. It worked. I breathed. Luca's phone appeared in his hand. Antonio, we have access. Start the transfers immediately. He listened for a moment. Yes, all of it, and tell Dominic to prepare the jet. He ended the call and turned to me. We need to move quickly now. Zhao will know we've accessed the accounts. Where are we going? I asked, setting down the pendant. Italy. My territory, where I can protect you properly. Italy, I echoed. I can't just leave the country. My job, my apartment are no longer safe. He cut in. Zhao doesn't forgive, Sophia. As long as you're connected to your father's theft, you'll be a target. The reality of my situation hit me fully for the first time. My old life was gone. Not just the future I'd planned with Jake, but everything. My career, my friends, the carefully constructed normalcy I'd taken for granted. For how long? I asked, voice barely audible. Luca's expression was unreadable. Until Zhao is no longer a threat, and when will that be? Instead of answering, he stepped closer, hands coming to rest on my shoulders. I promised your father I would protect you if the time ever came. I intend to keep that promise. You spoke to my father about this? I asked, startled. Once, shortly before his death. His thumbs traced small circles against my collarbone. He knew they might find him eventually. His only concern was your safety. I closed my eyes against a fresh wave of grief, not just for the father I'd lost, but for the man I'd never truly known. Did he suffer when he died? Heart failure was convenient, Luca said carefully. But painless. I ensured that much. The implications stole my breath. Not a natural death after all, but a mercy granted by the man now standing before me. I should have been horrified, should have pulled away in disgust. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, seeking comfort from the very hands that had orchestrated my father's passing. Why are you really helping me, Luca? I asked, opening my eyes to meet his gaze. A debt to my father can't be the only reason. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Hunger, possession, and something deeper I couldn't name. Perhaps I see in you what your father once was. Intelligence, loyalty, strength you don't yet recognize. Or perhaps you just want the money. I challenged. His laugh was unexpected, warm and genuine. Believe me, Sophia, if I only wanted the money, there are simpler ways to obtain it than protecting a stubborn woman who asks too many questions. I should have been offended. Instead, I found myself smiling back, the tension between us shifting into something else entirely. His hands moved from my shoulders to frame my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones with surprising gentleness. We leave in 3 hours, he said softly. Pack whatever you find in the bedroom. Everything else can be acquired in Italy. The idea of leaving everything behind should have terrified me. Yet standing in Luca's hold, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before my father's death. A sense of belonging, of rightness. What about Jake? I asked, the question necessary even as part of me already detached from the man who'd betrayed me. Luca's expression darkened. He stays here. My men will ensure he remains cooperative. Will you kill him? The question was direct, necessary. His gaze held mine. Do you want me to? The question shocked me, not just that he would ask it, but that I was seriously considering my answer. The old Sophia, the art teacher who believed in happy endings, would have been appalled. But I wasn't that woman anymore. No, I finally said. Not for my sake, but I don't want to see him again. Luca nodded, respect evident in his expression. Then you won't. He released me reluctantly, stepping back. Rest, prepare. I need to make arrangements. As he turned to leave, I caught his wrist. Luca. He paused, looking back at me with an intensity that made my heart race. Thank you for finding me on those church steps. Something softened in his gaze. Perhaps it was your father's final gift to us both. The words hung between us, laden with meaning I wasn't yet ready to fully examine. He left me standing in the kitchen, the jade pendant, my inheritance, my curse, glinting in the morning light. 3 hours later, we boarded a private jet bound for Italy. As the New York skyline receded beneath us, I felt my old life slipping away. Beside me, Luca worked quietly on his laptop, occasionally speaking rapid Italian into his phone. His security team occupied the rest of the cabin, a constant reminder of the danger we were fleeing. Second thoughts? Luca asked, noticing my gaze fixed on the disappearing city below. I turned to him. This dangerous man who had upended my world and somehow become my anchor within it. No, I answered truthfully, just processing. His hand covered mine on the armrest, warm and steadying. We'll build you a new life, Sophia, one worthy of who you truly are. Who I truly was. Daughter of Jia Wei, heir to secrets and danger, and a fortune built on shadow. As the ocean replaced the landscape beneath us, I realized I was finally ready to discover exactly what that meant. The Italian countryside unfolded beneath us as our helicopter descended toward what Luca simply called the estate. After a week at his Milan penthouse, a sophisticated prison where I'd been guarded, pampered, and kept largely in the dark, this transfer to his family home marked a shift I couldn't yet decipher. Below, vineyards stretched in neat rows around a sprawling villa that looked centuries old, its stone walls the color of honey in the afternoon sun. Mountains rose in the distance, and the glint of a lake caught the light. It was breathtakingly beautiful and utterly isolated. Tuscany? I asked, raising my voice over the helicopter's roar. Luca nodded. My family has owned this land for generations. It's the one place in the world I can guarantee your safety. The helicopter settled onto a landing pad where 3 men waited. As Luca helped me down, the cool autumn air carried the scent of cypress and earth. I smoothed the sundress he'd selected for me that morning, a simple white linen that made my skin look golden in the Italian sun. Benvenuta. An elderly woman greeted me at the villa's massive doors, her smile warm despite the assessing look in her eyes. I am Mrs. Vitale. We've prepared your rooms. Luca spoke to her in rapid Italian before turning to me. She'll show you upstairs. Rest, refresh yourself. We'll dine at 8. Before I could respond, he was striding away with his men, already deep in conversation. The pattern had become familiar over our week in Italy, moments of intense focus, followed by abrupt distance, as if he were constantly recalibrating the space between us. Mrs. Vitale led me through the villa, which was both grand and surprisingly homey, old money confident enough to display worn rugs alongside priceless art. My suite overlooked the eastern vineyards, with a balcony large enough for a small table and chairs. The bed was draped in linen so fine they felt like water against my skin when I tested them with my fingertips. You are the first woman the young master has brought here in many years, Mrs. Vitale remarked in accented English as she opened the wardrobe to reveal clothes in my size. We're not... I fumbled for words to explain a relationship I didn't understand myself. The older woman's eyes crinkled. Of course, Signorina. Her disbelief was evident. The bathroom has everything you need. Ring if you require anything else. Alone, I explored the suite, finding it both luxurious and clearly designed with security in mind. Reinforced windows, a sophisticated lock system, and what I strongly suspected were panic buttons disguised as light switches. A beautiful cage, but a cage nonetheless. After showering away the travel grime, I dressed in a simple black cocktail dress I found hanging in the wardrobe, perfect for dinner at a villa or fleeing in the night should the need arise. The thought made me smile grimly as I fastened the gold bracelet Luca had given me, still my constant companion, its tracking capabilities both reassurance and reminder of my circumstances. At precisely 8, a soft knock announced a young staff member who escorted me downstairs and through a maze of corridors to a surprisingly intimate dining room. A table set for 2 stood before windows overlooking the now darkened vineyard, candles casting golden light over crystal and silver. Luca waited beside the table, transformed from the tense businessman of our journey into something more dangerous, a man at home in his power. He wore no tie, his white shirt open at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms. His eyes darkened appreciatively as I entered. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out my chair. "You look relaxed," I countered, settling into my seat. "First time since I've met you," he smiled, pouring ruby red wine into my glass. "This is my sanctuary. Few outsiders ever see it. Am I still an outsider?" I asked boldly. His gaze locked with mine over the rim of his glass. "What do you think?" The meal progressed through exquisite courses: pasta with truffles, tender veal, vegetables from the estate's gardens. We spoke of safer topics: the villa's history, my interrupted career as an art teacher, his appreciation for Renaissance painters. It felt almost normal, as if we were simply a man and woman enjoying dinner, not a mafia boss and his reluctant ward. As dessert was served, a perfect panna cotta with fresh berries, I finally broke the unspoken truce. "It's been 2 weeks, Luca. I need to know what's happening. Has there been word from Zhao? From your men watching Jake? What's the plan for me?" He set down his spoon with deliberate care. "Zhao has gone quiet. It could mean he's abandoned the pursuit, but more likely he's regrouping. As for your ex-fiancé, he's been released with sufficient motivation to remain silent about both your whereabouts and the accounts." "Sufficient motivation," I repeated. "You threatened him." "I made the consequences of further betrayal explicit," Luca corrected, unapologetic. "He's lucky to be alive." I couldn't argue with that logic, however cold. "And me? How long do I stay here, hidden away like some secret?" "Is that how you see it?" He leaned forward, candlelight shadowing the planes of his face. "As imprisonment rather than protection? How else should I see it? My life isn't my own anymore. I go where you dictate, wear what you provide, exist in this limbo of luxury and danger. And if I offered you freedom," he asked quietly, "a new identity, funds, the chance to disappear to some corner of the world where neither I nor Zhao could find you?" My heart stuttered. "You would do that? If it was what you truly wanted." His expression was unreadable. "Is it?" The question hung between us. A week ago I might have said yes immediately. Now I wasn't so certain. What would freedom mean? A lifetime of looking over my shoulder, of starting over with no connections, no history, and without Luca. The thought brought an unexpected ache. "I don't know," I admitted. "Everything's happened so fast. 3 weeks ago I was about to marry Jake. Now I'm in Italy, running from Chinese gangsters, with a man who knew my father better than I did." Luca's mouth quirked. "When you put it that way, it does sound rather dramatic." Despite everything, I laughed. A real laugh that released some of the tension I'd been carrying. Luca's smile in response transformed his face, making him look younger, almost carefree. "Stay," he said suddenly, reaching across the table to take my hand, not as a prisoner or someone to be protected. "Stay and work with me." I blinked in surprise. "Work with you? Doing what exactly?" "Your father was brilliant with numbers, with seeing patterns others missed. I suspect you have the same gift." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "My organization has legitimate businesses. The vineyards, import, export, real estate. You could start there." "You want me to join the Mafia?" I asked incredulously. He winced. "As I've mentioned, we don't use that term. Think of it as a family business with certain specialized divisions." I withdrew my hand, needing space to think clearly. "Is that why you brought me here? To recruit me?" "I brought you here to keep you safe," he said firmly. "But the more I know you, Sophia, the more I see possibilities I hadn't considered. What kind of possibilities? I challenged. The look he gave me burned with an intensity that had nothing to do with business. Many kinds. Heat rushed through me, pooling low in my belly. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with weeks of unspoken tension. And if I say no? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Then I arrange your new identity as promised. His voice was rough. And release you from any obligation. Just like that? After all this? I told you from the beginning, Luca said quietly. No obligations beyond what you choose. I stood abruptly, needing to move. I need time to think. Of course. He rose as well, ever the gentleman despite the predatory grace that marked his every movement. The gardens are lovely at night, if you'd care to walk. The suggestion was innocent enough. But as he offered his arm, I knew accepting meant more than a simple stroll. I took it anyway, letting him lead me through French doors onto a stone terrace, then down steps to a garden fragrant with jasmine and night-blooming flowers. We walked in silence, the gravel path crunching beneath our feet, until we reached a small fountain where water trickled musically over ancient stones. The moon hung full and heavy above us, casting silver light across the landscape. My father, I said finally. Was he like you? A boss? Luca considered the question. He could have been. He had the mind for it, the instincts. But he wanted something different. A normal life, I murmured. With my mother. With me, yes. And he paid dearly for it. Luca turned to face me, his expression solemn in the moonlight. But I don't think he regretted his choice, even at the end. Tears pricked my eyes. Did he know what Jake was, what he planned? No. Luca's hands rose to cup my face, thumbs gently wiping away tears I hadn't realized had fallen. Your father believed he'd buried his past completely. He couldn't have known they would find you through Foster. I closed my eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm so tired of secrets, Luca. Of not knowing who to trust. Trust yourself, he murmured, his breath warm against my forehead. You've survived betrayal, discovered truths that would break many. You're stronger than you know, Sophia Chen. When I opened my eyes, his face was inches from mine. Eyes dark with an emotion I finally allowed myself to recognize. Desire. Yes. But also something deeper, more possessive. Something that should have frightened me, but instead made me feel strangely whole. Why me? I whispered. You could have fulfilled your debt to my father without bringing me here, without this. His smile was rueful. I intended to. When I found you on those church steps, my plan was simple. Protect you, secure the accounts, settle things with Zhao. Professional. Detached. What changed? His thumbs traced my cheekbones. You did. Your strength, your resilience, the way you faced every revelation without breaking. His voice deepened. The way you look at me not with fear, but with understanding. I recognized the truth in his words. Despite everything, the danger, the upheaval, the glimpses of violence, I'd never truly feared Luca himself. Something in me had recognized something in him from that first moment on the church steps. I don't want a new identity, I said softly. I want to know who I really am, who I could be. Understanding dawned in his eyes. And who might that be, Sophia? Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something fierce and consuming. His arms encircled me, pulling me against the hard planes of his body as if he'd been restraining himself for too long. When we finally broke apart, breathing heavily, the decision had been made without words. No new identity, no running, no more pretending I didn't belong in this world that had claimed me despite my ignorance. Stay with me, Luca murmured against my lips, not as someone to protect, as my equal, my partner. In all things, I challenged, needing the clarity. His smile held promises both dangerous and thrilling. In all things. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of our Milan penthouse, watching snow drift over the city. Behind me, Luca spoke on the phone, finalizing details for our meeting with former associates of my father, who wished to pledge allegiance to our combined organizations. The jade pendant hung around my neck, no longer a key to stolen millions, but a reminder of the legacy I'd inherited and transformed. The accounts had been legitimized, the money now flowing through proper channels. funding expansions that straddled the line between shadows and light. Zhao had made one final attempt against us, an ambush that had left scars on both Luca and me, his across his shoulder, mine along my collarbone. The man himself had not survived the encounter, his organization now splintered and largely absorbed into ours. As for Jake, he disappeared to Australia according to our sources, wisely putting as much distance as possible between himself and the woman he'd once thought to use as a pawn. Warm arms encircled me from behind, and I leaned back against Luca's chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Regrets?" he asked, his lips brushing my temple. I turned in his arms, studying the face that had become as essential to me as my own reflection. Not one. His kiss was possessive, claiming, a reminder that what had begun as protection had evolved into something far more powerful. I matched his intensity, no longer the abandoned bride weeping on church steps, but a woman who had embraced both her past and her future. In the dying light of a winter afternoon, with snow falling around us and danger never far away, I had found something I'd never expected on that devastating wedding day. Not the safe, predictable life I'd planned with Jake, but a love born of fire and shadow, stronger for the truths it had weathered, and I would fight to protect it, just as fiercely as Luca had once fought to protect me.